Welcome to the IVF Abroad podcast for people who are struggling with infertility and trying to conceive, and who are facing more obstacles than options when it comes to having fertility testing or treatment in their home countries. Alongside other experts, I will share, educate and empower you on your journey and help you to learn more about going abroad for advanced fertility testing and treatments like IVF and egg donation. I'm Emma Haslam, your host, now mum of one, and the go-to expert in fertility treatment abroad. Since the birth of our son in 2018, I have made it my mission to make fertility treatment more informed, transparent, accessible, supported and affordable for more people. And I help people just like you to become unstuck, to find a best fit clinic that truly meets their needs, and to have fertility treatment on their terms and timescales so they can achieve their dreams of growing their families. And I'm here now to help you too. Be sure to check out the free resources in the show notes for more help after listening to today's episode. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the podcast. And today I will be talking to a special guest about a topic that I know can be incredibly emotional, frustrating, and for many people, one of their biggest barriers that they face on their fertility journey. Weight and BMI often become a huge part of too many fertility conversations, but what I want to discuss is, when does BMI genuinely matter and when might there be more to it? And that's exactly what we're going to explore today. And I'm delighted to be joined once again by the lovely Nicola Salmon, who is a fat-positive fertility coach who supports people in larger bodies who navigate fertility treatment with more confidence, self-compassion and self-advocacy. She's passionate about helping people challenge weight stigma within fertility care while empowering them to make informed decisions that are right for them. So Nicola, welcome back to the pod.
Oh, thank you so much for having me again. I have been looking forward to having another chat with you.
Yay, me too. So for anybody listening to the podcast who has not come across you before, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how you came to specialise in supporting people in larger bodies through the fertility stuff?
Absolutely. So I'll try not to rabbit on too much. I'm sure we talked about this last time, so I'll try and keep it a little bit brief. But I've always been in a bigger body. I have always been considered fat, and I use that word totally neutrally. For me, that is a total neutral descriptor of my body. Regardless of what my clothes size was, like even as a teenager, I was labelled as fat. I identified as fat. From a size 14 up to a size 24, which is what I am now. Like, the way that I saw myself in the world was in a bigger body and told to make my body smaller. So that's always been how I identified and how I saw my place in the world. When I was 16, I was told I would never get pregnant. That was with a PCOS or PMOS diagnosis now. And basically sent on my little merry way. And that was it. That was all I was told. So I expected it to be really hard to get pregnant. I thought it was going to be a big challenge. I spent my teens, my 20s yo-yo dieting, trying to do all the things to make my body smaller and conform. And then I got pregnant really easily with both my boys. And that was kind of the first piece of my evidence pile, if you will, of doctors aren't always right. Well, why did this happen to me? I'm in the biggest body I am. I have really irregular cycles. How did this happen? Not once, but twice. And so that kind of led me down a little squirrely rabbit hole with my brain going, well, what is going on? I don't understand how this could have been possible. And then, through a lot of self-exploration, research rabbit holes, figuring out that actually, surprise, surprise, weight isn't the be-all and end-all. There is a lot more nuance. There is a lot more complication. There is a lot more stuff going on that's not just weight is, being fat is bad. And it opened this whole world to me of fat liberation, of understanding more about the science behind why we assume all fat bodies are bad. And led me to a place where I just had to start talking about this stuff. That I was trained in fertility acupuncture, fertility coaching. And as soon as I knew more about this topic, I was like, well, I've got to talk about this because there are so many people, and I could have easily been one of those people who are systematically denied care based purely on a number on a scale and the clinician's bias and the system that we exist in, rather than anything to do with them, their weight, their health, anything. So yeah, I was compelled. I could not stop myself from talking about it if I tried.
And thank goodness that you decided to do that, because it is so important. And so you mentioned that you were told that you had PCOS, so now PMOS.
Mm-hmm.
Did the clinicians blame it on that, or your weight, or both?
It was kind of a bit of both. So it was you're too heavy, and that means that you have PCOS, and therefore you will never get pregnant. So if you lose the weight, you'll magically cure yourself and everything will be hunky dory. Was kind of, those obviously were not their exact words, but that is what I took away from it. And that is what I absorbed into my teenage brain. And that became who I was, right? Like, I'd done this to myself. It was my responsibility. I'd obviously just eaten too much, whatever, and not moved my body enough, because that's what we're always told. And that was the solution. I've got to make my body smaller. I've got to lose weight. I've got to diet, find the right thing for me. And that will magically fix everything, which of course didn't and never does, because weight loss doesn't work. And yeah, it was a whole, it made me so angry when I really figured out what was going on, because I'd spent so much time, energy, effort, money trying to make my body smaller, and it didn't work. And also finding out that it never works and would never work, and it was not my fault, made me very, very cross for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I totally resonate with that. I think, if anybody listening to this in a bigger body will know how it feels to be blamed and shamed within healthcare settings,
Mm-hmm.
and often sweeping statements without any evidence or real investigation.
No.
And it's so interesting how, and I know you're not saying it was in those words, but how essentially the clinician was blaming your weight for causing your PCOS or your PMOS, and then saying that, so because of that, that's why you can't conceive. If you lose the weight, it will mean that your PMOS will definitely be better and you'll conceive. When actually we know that is not actually
Totally
factually.
the reverse, right? Like, weight gain can absolutely be a side effect of PCOS,
Yes.
PMOS.
Yeah.
But one isn't causing the other. And we've never had that link, like it's always been causative. So like it's always been a correlation rather than a causation. So it makes me really angry that that was ever put, into my brain and considered. So hopefully we can do better for the future folks of the world who are navigating these kinds of conditions.
Yeah, because it's damaging,
Mm.
and it does make people feel like this is somehow their fault on a journey
100%.
where I already believe that. I don't know if it was the same for you, Nicola, but it was definitely the same for me. And I hear this from clients, that we already feel a lot of blame
100%.
around these things. So to add to it, essentially people saying, well, you're too big to receive treatment or to become pregnant or to have a baby or whatever, just increases that blame, shame. And it just makes us feel even worse than we already feel.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many layers to it, right? Like, we're already conditioned our whole lives to believe that our bodies are the most important thing about us as people who are assigned to female at birth. Like, our bodies are like our calling card, if you will. Like, this is how we're showing up in the world, and that's how everybody judges us. To then add on that layer of, getting pregnant, and that part of like womanhood, of like, that's your role in life, is to make babies, right? Like, historically, that's how women have been seen. And it kind of is a core, almost like identity of, we should be able to have babies. And, like, it's so inbuilt into us that once you start adding these layers up and then being told it's absolutely your fault, like, the weight of that shame and that guilt and that expectation and the pressure we put upon ourselves is just so big. And I don't think clinicians, the healthcare system, can really comprehend how much of an impact that has on people's mental health.
Mm. And the thing is as well, and we're not saying not to trust doctors,
Mm.
but we are taught not to question. We are taught to get what we're given and accept. And I think this is even more so for people perhaps who are in marginalised bodies.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of this is about money when it comes to things like public healthcare, which we already know. But we sort of accept if a doctor tells us something, that's the reason why you can't get pregnant, or that's the reason why you haven't had a baby. We accept that.
Yeah.
And it's really, I think, to know when and what we should be accepting and when we should be questioning things to understand actually is there more to it. And that's really difficult because we want to trust medical professionals and we want to trust doctors who are, and clinicians who are obviously very well educated, experienced in lots of ways. But as you quite rightly mentioned, there's a lot of bias and things in reproductive healthcare and healthcare in general.
Yeah.
And I would link the previous episode with Nicola in the show notes because it would be great if you're enjoying this one to go back and listen to that because we cover a lot of that there. So I don't get too sidetracked and start recovering podcast number one with Nicola. But, I think these are really important things to kind of highlight. And if you want to dig into that in more detail, then go back to that last episode because it was a good one. But why do you think that BMI, Nicola, has become such a dominant part of fertility conversation? Like, obviously, I've already touched on the fact that with the NHS, I truly believe a lot of that is down to money and down to trying to exclude people from treatment to save money.
I've had clinicians in the NHS admit that to me, that it is a cost-saving exercise. And really the only socially acceptable group of people that we can exclude are folks in bigger bodies. It feels like the only socially acceptable thing we can do. But obviously this goes back so far. It goes back as far as healthcare, this bias, the formation of how our healthcare system works. And that is based on racist biases. That is based on, all of the biases that existed, like men are the people who are in charge and, a very paternalistic approach. And that is how the system is set up. And whilst we try and change it, and we have changed lots of parts of that over the years, those foundations and fundamental racist undertones still exist. The paternalistic undertones still exist. And it's really hard to change a system that's built on that. Like the whole foundation of medicine is built on, this idea that there's got top people in charge and this very hierarchical system. And that doesn't work in patient care because it should be collaborative. It should be a place where we are all equals and we all get to, have a conversation. And ultimately it's the patient's choice as to what treatments, what testing, anything that involves their body should be their decision. And it has not been framed like that in healthcare for a really long time. So to undo all that is quite a lot of hard work. But yeah, so much of it is based on racism, on these fundamental ideas that fat is bad, that fat is unhealthy. And it's really hard to unpick a lot of those foundations because then everything comes crumbling down. And how do you do that to a healthcare system? There's all over, obviously we have our own pockets of healthcare systems, but fundamentally, all over the world, there's all these beliefs and ways of doing things that need to change.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And I think, too often people hear the sweeping statement of it's either unsafe with no backup or anything. It's just a sweeping statement. Or they don't know the answer to why somebody's not got pregnant or somebody's not been able to have a live birth. And therefore it's the easy cop out that is used because that person just doesn't know, or they don't have the capabilities of that clinic, or it's an NHS funded service and they don't have, they don't fund that side of things. So it's much easier to say to people, it's because you're fat.
Yeah, it's an easy cop out, right? But it's also not medicine. It is not evidence based. It is not ethical. It is an abhorrent way to treat somebody, and we all deserve better than that.
100%. And it doesn't feel collaborative, does it at all?
No.
It feels very computer.
Yeah, it's very infantilizing as well. It is oh, poor little fat person. You don't know how to take care of yourself. You don't know how to eat or how to move your body. I'm going to make all these assumptions about you and I'm going to assume that you're stupid. So you go away and you come back when you've proved yourself, to be a good human that can deserve this. And that's so rubbish. It's not true. All those assumptions are completely false. We are intelligent, wonderful, creative, brilliant human beings, and we deserve to be able to access the care that we need.
And I think that hits the nail on the head. And for a lot of us, don't feel confident to challenge these things because the way we feel about ourselves.
Oh, of course.
Feel about challenging a medical professional. Again, go back and listen to Nicola's first episode. She gives really good tips around things that you can say and you can ask. It's interesting, actually, because I think back, I'm in a bigger body for those people that don't know. And when I was navigating this with the NHS, it was blamed. I was told that the reason we couldn't have children was down to my weight.
Mm-hmm.
So hence a lot of blame and shame and time wasting. It had nothing to do with it, by the way, folks. It never
No
does.
surprise.
My experience, yeah, but it wasted a lot of time and kept us in limbo longer. But what I have since then learned is that, no, do you know what? I am worthy and I am going to ask questions. But I didn't feel like that then. And interestingly, now I will ask for information. And sometimes it can feel difficult because you think, oh my gosh, I'm being challenging. But it's okay to ask questions and to input. I was asking to go on a certain medication recently, and I was told, because I'm in a bigger body, that it can increase chances of X, Y, and Z. And I said, can you tell me
How much?
Yeah, and how much? He didn't know. He's like, oh, well, the studies have actually all been done on men. And I was like,
That's bullshit.
I know. Can you tell me what it's like on men? He's like, oh, I don't have the exact figures. I was like, well, can you find out and let me know, please? And then I can make a more informed decision. He was like, oh, right. Yeah. Yes, of course.
We're not asking for the moon. Oh my goodness. We're asking for valid information that you
Valid
need
information.
to
And
make a
then, so I
decision.
can work with him collaboratively.
If the risk goes from 1% to 1.2%, I'll take those odds. If it goes
Correct.
from 1 to 99, it's a
Correct.
very different conversation.
But you could just tell he wasn't. It was nice. It was pleasant with me. So that's the one thing I would say. He was fine.
Yeah.
But I think he was shocked that I was asking questions. And you won't necessarily always get the result that you want. I could have argued with the NHS back then. It would have made no difference in terms of me getting treatment. I wouldn't have got it because them's are the rules.
You choose
But
your
you feel better.
you choose
You
your
understand.
battles, don't you?
Yeah, you pick your battles. But essentially, we might have made decisions earlier to do things differently, whereas we were just like, okay, accepting that's why we can't get pregnant and off we go. And I'm not judging anybody else if you've had that happen to you either, because I think we are told to, to listen, and we get what we're given. And as like you say,
All by design.
go away and get sorted, come back, and then we'll help you. Systemically, there's a lot that goes on there, but I just think it's very interesting, and I would encourage people to at least ask questions if you can. And again, in the previous episode, we talked about what some of those questions might be and might look like as well to help you.
But yeah, it is all by design. The system is built so that we do as we're told. That is capitalism 101. So it feels uncomfortable, and it's supposed to feel uncomfortable to ask these questions. We are not taught the skills of advocacy. It's something that we have to learn, something we have to practice, to get wrong, to stumble on our words, to cry to appointments. But the more we do it, the better we get. And we absolutely deserve to be able to ask those questions and ask for that research and keep pushing. I always encourage my people to keep being the difficult patient, because it feels uncomfortable, but it gets easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Even things now like, when you go for an appointment and they'll go, can I just take your weight? And I'm like, can I weigh you? I'm like, no. Unless it's clinically necessary to weigh me today, then no. And they'll be like,
it never is. It never is.
No. So I'm like, no. And then they'll sometimes say, are you happy to share your weight? And sometimes I'm like, yeah. And sometimes I'm like, no. But I feel like I've got a little bit of choice, and just that, right, if you want to step on the scales, like, no, I don't, thank you.
Oh,
I don't
thanks. Not today. I love that. And the more we do that, like whoever's listening, whether you are in a fat body or a thin body, it's great to push back on that, because the more we do that, we set it up to be more normal for the next person who might struggle to do that. So it is an amazing thing to do, regardless of what body you're in.
Exactly. And it also helps you practice, I think.
Yeah, little moments, right? Micro advocacy.
Yeah, absolutely. But I couldn't have done that back then. Yeah. But now I can.
Practice.
So it's things when you can that will practice to pave the way for somebody else, but also might make it easier for you when something comes up in the future to go, hang on a second, I want to ask some more questions or want to say no. And that's okay. So today's title of the podcast is going to be something like, haven't fully decided yet. BMI and fertility, like, when is there more going on? So I want to start with the obvious question.
Yes.
When do you think BMI genuinely matters when it comes to fertility treatment? And when do you think it risks becoming like a whole separate conversation that actually has nothing to do with why somebody can't conceive or get to a live birth? When do you think it matters?
I think the only time that BMI matters when you are accessing treatment is when the clinicians aren't trained to support fat folks and the clinics are not set up to help fat people. That is where the gap is. often our systems in fertility are set up so that they train on small bodies. The anatomy they look at is of smaller bodies. When they go and do their rotations, everything is focused on folks in smaller bodies. So they do not get the experience of working with people with bigger bodies anatomy. They do not get to look at the breadth of medications that they might require, how that might differ depending on BMI. They do not think about, okay, well, if we have bigger people coming into our clinic, do we need bigger beds? Do we need bigger gowns? Do we need to think about our needle sizes? All of these things are the difference between having a great experience at a clinic in a bigger body and maybe receiving less than adequate or unsafe care. It is not about our body's capability to navigate that treatment. It is just as safe, it's just as effective, but we need the clinicians and the clinics to step up, do the training, look at the research, and really think about their own bias in it, because that is the difference between good treatment and not good treatment for fat folks. And it is nothing we can do or control or change about our bodies.
Absolutely. And, there are clinics out there that do specialise in
Yes.
working with people in bigger bodies, so that all those things that Nicola just mentioned are taken into account. So they are still making safe decisions, but they're making safe and informed decisions based on treating lots of people in bigger bodies in the right situations. And that's not to say that conversations around BMI and weight may not happen if it's clinically relevant, but I do feel it's different when coming from somebody or a team that looks after lots of people in bigger bodies and has that
Yes.
experience. Because then it doesn't feel like they're automatically closing the door, first of all.
Yes.
And only talking about it if it's clinically necessary and in a way that feels non-judgmental.
Yeah.
And a lot of clients with higher BMIs who've gone to clinics that specialise in this, and sometimes weight comes up and sometimes it doesn't come up at all. But you know that if it has come up, it's because there's a genuine reason in that person's case. And you know what? All my clients in those cases have been like, that's fine, because we understood why that conversation was had. It was done respectfully. It was evidence-based. And yes, it did make sense. And the agreement that we came to was very much with our input, and it was sensible, and we can see why that's going to help with clinical outcomes for us.
Mm-hmm.
And also other people, weight just was never mentioned because actually it didn't matter in their case. And the fact that these clinics are not dealing just solely with thin people, and this is nothing against thin people, but it's about clinics having the expertise in what you, and that's what's so important, thin, fat, whatever. You've got to have a clinic that's going to be right for you, because it's going to improve your experience.
100%. And that really matters.
Yeah, it really matters. And you're not going to be told things about your BMI that are just not true, which is what clinics.
Or told to go away and lose weight, which is not going to increase the chances and the likelihood of IVF working, because when you are going away and starving yourself, reducing your calorific input, increasing the stress on your body with movement, that is not going to help. We have research that shows that going on things like very restricted diets have a really negative impact on the outcome of IVF. So having a clinic that understands a bit more nuance around this topic and is not just sending you away to go and lose weight, and actually is looking at the whole picture and not just seeing you as, a body, then that is only going to, have positive impact on your treatment and the outcome.
Yeah, 100%. Do you think there are times when focusing too heavily on BMI can delay people getting investigations of support that they actually need?
Yeah, in so many ways. So the first is ourselves, right? Like when we believe that our BMI is the issue and that we just need to fix ourselves, just need to lose some weight, then we delay that because we are trying to reach that bar that has been set for us that is very hard to reach. It is only ever really short term when you're looking at diets. So we constantly will yo-yo then up and down, up and down, up and down, and blame ourselves and tell ourselves, okay, when I reach this arbitrary goal, then I'll be able to go to the doctor and seek help and support and all that. So that is something that is a huge barrier to people. But then the next kind of part of the story is you'll go to see your doctor and they'll say, oh, well, maybe you should lose some more weight because it's probably the problem. So then you have to go away and try again and do more performative weight loss to try and meet their standards. And then every level of that where you're trying to access care, they're pushing you back. They're telling you that if you just go and lose weight, it will magically fix the problem. And that's causing further and further and further delays. When actually, If you knew that you were ready to get pregnant and you hadn't gotten pregnant within the next 6 to 12 months, depending on your age, you've got a test straight away. That is going to give you the best outcomes because you're looking at what the actual problem is rather than pretending that it's weight and then delaying and delaying and delaying until you find out what the actual reason is. But then you're, years down the line, which is not fair at all to folks who want to do this process.
No, and I think it definitely adds more waiting time in a journey that is already time sensitive, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's not a cliff, but it is,
No.
we know that age plays a real factor and that's not something we can, pussyfoot around. But so many people that I work with are in their later 30s, early 40s because they've felt like they've had to jump through this completely arbitrary BMI barrier hoop before they get to accessing the care that they need.
Yeah, and that's the same with me. A lot of people will have, have said things to me like, we want to do this, but I'm going to go away and lose some weight. Some people want to do absolutely fine.
Oh, yeah. Body
a lot
choice,
of people,
100%.
Yeah, do it because they believe that
Yeah.
they should, because they, that's what the system has told them. And then, when people resort to more drastic ways of losing weight quickly, that can be so damaging for egg health. And then that then isn't great for having, fertility.
What are we doing to people? It's just not fair. It makes no sense to me. It's so illogical. But yeah, absolutely. Body autonomy. You get to choose what you do with your body. That is none of my business. What I angry about is the system that makes you believe that that's something that you should have to do in the first place.
Yeah. And then even, I agree, it makes me furious. And then also what's happening in some areas of the country is that people are being denied the very basic tests at GP level in the UK due to BMI, which to me is absolute outright discrimination because at that point, a GP can do those tests. It's not later on down the line where computers says no, a certain BMI for NHS IVF funded treatment, which while I disagree, I understand they are the rules that are in place. A GP deciding not to test you for something, that they would test you for something else if you're worried about your heart or...
Yeah, there's not in the NICE guidelines.
So
absolutely against all policy. It is just
absolutely
biased.
And if this is happening to you, like, please, if you can, fight back or speak to somebody like Nicola to help you with how to fight back, because that...
See a different doctor. Go and see a different GP, doctor. Change practices. You're well within your rights to do that because not every doctor is the same.
Manager, absolutely. But also be aware that because of the limitations within things like the NHS, those are very basic tests. So it might come back that there are no problems, and maybe there aren't any problems. But then automatically, often what happens at this point is the weight thing is reinforced or brought up. And what I want you to know, excuse me, is that these are very baseline tests, and that is the next easy thing for somebody to say, well, your tests are fine, therefore it's your weight, go away and lose weight. Or if they can't offer you anything else and it's NHS IVF, but you're in a higher BMI, in a bigger body, they will say it's weight. But please know that there are a whole raft of other tests and things that you could have done to actually
figure out what is going on.
What is actually going on. Because
absolutely.
In my experience and Nicola's, I've helped hundreds of people, and so has she. It's never been weight, but let's work through this and work it out, because at this point, I think it can be quite pivotal to people. They've built themselves up to go to the GP. If they've got access to these tests, and these tests don't tell people what they need, and they often don't tell people.
That's so basic. They are so basic. It's one point in time that you're taking these tests. You need so much more information, really.
So much more. And it's very basic in terms of male factor fertility tests as well. So then what happens at that point? Instead of a GP saying, look, these are very basic tests, you could go privately and you could explore more things. This is the point where they'll go, okay, well, it's IVF, when actually you might not even need IVF, by the way. And by the way, you've got to lose weight if you want to have IVF, or it's probably weight as to why you have not had a baby. And then it just compounds, and we go away like I did, thinking, right, I've got to lose all this weight. How am I going to do it? And all that time, you're just keeping yourself in limbo longer. And it's not your fault. And delaying being able to get treatment because you are confused and thinking that somehow this is something you've done, or it's for existing in a bigger body, and it's not.
Yeah, 100%. And even if they don't say lose weight, the fact that you have to go away and lose weight to access the care, the bias is built in there, right? Of course you're going to go, well, it must be my fault.
Yeah, exactly. And I hear a lot of my clients, probably the same with you, Nicola, saying that they leave every appointment for anything, fertility or otherwise, feeling like everything always comes back to their weight.
And then they'll go and cry in the car because it's shit and the doctors are
Yeah.
not talking about this appropriately. Like, that's not okay. It's not okay for that to be happening. Absolutely not.
No, it's not. What do you wish that fertility professionals, obviously it's not all fertility professionals, but what do you wish that more fertility professionals understood about caring for people in larger bodies?
I wish that they could understand their own bias. I wish that they had to do a test. So there's a great one called, I think it's the Harvard implicit bias test, and you can get them for all kinds of different biases. I wish that they had to do them all, like do the weight bias, gender bias, like racist bias, like all of the different biases to really understand how their brains are working. We've all got biases. We're all a little bit fat phobic, a little bit racist. Like, that is something that we all need to accept happens. And rather than just pretending it doesn't exist, we need to be working actively to make sure that it doesn't impact the way that we work with people and the way that we work with our patients. And I think if people were forced to do that and understand, face their bias, and figure out how is this impacting my practice and how I work with people, what can I do differently, and be like an active ally with that, that would make all the difference. Because the information is out there, the research is out there. People aren't aren't putting it together and understanding the real impact that it's having on patients.
And interestingly, at ESHRA this time, there was I was following. Do you know Sophie Sulheria? You'll know Sophie probably. She helps run the fertility show. She posted some of the kind of outtakes from this year's ESHRA, and I shared it to my Instagram stories yesterday. We're basically saying that there's no real evidence that Kelsoprees.
I know. I've not been talking about this for 8 years, right?
Yeah, I was going to say you've only been banging on this drum for like the last 8 years, but basically saying that there's
maybe we'll get there. Maybe there's
no
hope.
evidence to show that weight has any impact on people having babies. But it's really important, and I'm pleased to see that starting to come through. And I think we will get there. And some clinics have got there already.
Yes, absolutely.
There's still a long way to go, isn't there?
Yeah. Well, and it's steps, right? Like, I was working with a clinic here in the UK to try and get some better care for folks with bigger bodies, and they were all up for it. But I think a lot of the clinicians were worried about what their peers were thinking about them, because it is so edge, right? Like, it is so against the norm of how we think about bodies in medicine. So it's not as simple as, let's all just change it and fix the system, right? Like, there's a lot of people in this system that we need to help figure out this stuff. And there's a lot of pressure when you're working in this kind of field to make sure that people are safe and it's effective, and a lot of pushback on a lot of people. So yeah, I wish it was so simple, but unfortunately there's a lot more to fix, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to do, but I mean, well done them for that, because it's a major step forward in the UK. A lot of people think that every clinic abroad treats people in bigger bodies with high BMIs, and that's just not true.
No.
But there are, of course, a choice of more countries and a choice of more clinics. So there are clinics out there that absolutely do.
Which there's some great options and cheaper options. Like, the UK is so expensive for fertility care. So if you can go and find it abroad and find it in a place that's, you're still offering you a great level of care, great service, making you feel safe and supported, and it's at a lower cost, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. And even like some of my clients from the States and stuff like that, even though it's a lot further for them to go, the amount of money that they save is crazy. I mean, you can save a lot of money if you're based in the UK, but you can save one heck of a lot of money if you're based in the US. And again, I think, a lot of people presume that in the US, the BMI limits at clinics will automatically be higher. But, the US is massive.
So many variation in the US, so much
many variations. And ultimately, a lot of people have to travel anyway. So one of my new clients, they were traveling 2.5 hours to a fertility clinic that they were with in the States. So they were like, well, we figure we may as well just fly and get more choice rather than having to pay. And they were literally over the point scale at this clinic by, I think, 1%. It was ridiculous, but the clinic wouldn't budge.
Yeah.
And they were like, do you know what? We deserve better than this. I was like, yes,
you
do. Which is great. And now they understand they can actually save one heck of a lot of money as well, which is great. But this is something that is happening. Just happens a lot, doesn't it? I hope you all can't hear that alarm going off. Can you hear it?
I can hear it a little bit, but it's not ridiculous. I mean, you can't control the outside world, right?
No. It's too hot to shut the door, so we're just going to have to cope and hope that I can edit it out.
We'll figure it out.
Okay, so then, my next question.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody listening to this feels like their weight has become the only thing that professionals around them in this fertility space are talking about,
Yeah.
how can they advocate for themselves?
That's a really good question. And I think, like we said before, advocacy is not something we're ever taught. It's something that we have to figure out, practice, 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 and just try and do. But the way that I think about it is, first of all, people need to believe in themselves. They need to come to the conclusion that they absolutely do deserve this care. And only with that belief can you possibly even start to have these conversations, right? If you believe that I just need to lose the weight, I just need to lose the weight, I don't deserve to have this, then you're never going to be able to have these conversations because you don't, you know, why would you consider having it when you absolutely trust that it's your body that's the problem? So that's the kind of the first hurdle is, even if you just believe it a little bit, or just trust that maybe it's a possibility that this is not your fault and that you absolutely deserve to have this care without losing weight or without making your body smaller. That even just planting that tiny, tiny little seed is enough to get started. And then what I always go back to is a really useful phrase I call prepare and care. So the preparation can look like all different ways depending on what you need. So it is, you could prepare questions that you want to have answered. You can prepare some research. And this is something I do for a lot of my clients, is help them access, understand the research that they can take in and talk to their clinicians about. Looking at guidelines in the country that you exist in, like the NICE guidelines in the UK, or looking at your country's guidelines as to what is and isn't like accessible for you in terms of your own healthcare system and what you're navigating. Things you want to say and how you want to say it. So writing all that stuff down, having that prepared can be really useful. And then the care bit kind of comes into two halves. So the first is beforehand, like getting your needs met. How are you going to make sure that you are looking after yourself through this process? So that could be thinking about when you want the appointment. Do you work best in the mornings or the afternoons? What time suits you best, and trying to meet that need? It could be comfy clothes, having a support person, bringing some water with you, recording it if you struggle to process things, and like, so you have it to listen back to afterwards. All of these things can be really useful to help you take care of your needs beforehand. And then afterwards, the appointment will go how the appointment goes, right? Like, you're just going to be in it. You're going to do whatever comes out of your mouth and it will just happen. Regardless of what happens, you've done your best. So you deserve to be cared for afterwards. And that might be a cozy show, one of your favorite comfort shows, your favorite food, rest, taking a day off, having some fun with your partner or friends. It is really just about making sure that you are caring for yourself and meeting your needs through that whole process, because this stuff is hard and you should not have to do it. So the more we can take care of ourselves and be kind to ourselves, the better.
I think that's some great advice there, Nicola, as well. And I just also like to add my two penneth, if I
Please
may.
do.
Even if you're listening to this and thinking, yeah, but I still think that it's me.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, if you can even open yourself up to being curious about the possibility that it could be, you want to tell yourself it could be you. Okay, it could be you. But what else could it be?
Yes.
And try to explore some of those avenues as a way of just sort of helping you to maybe go into this process and think, okay, but I do still think it's me, but I'm happy to prove myself right or wrong by working through some of the other possibilities of things that it could be, even from a point of view that you may discover something that is then helpful to you on this journey. And if it proves you to be right, then it proves you to be right. But at least you will know definitively, rather than it just being based on a sweeping statement when the proper tests and things haven't been done. Because how can that doctor know if you haven't properly tested? They cannot. They just cannot know that. So even if you really feel like, no, but I really do think it is my weight, if you can be open and be curious to proving yourself wrong or right, I think sometimes that can make it.
Yeah, I like that. Every good doctor worth their salt. House, he does a differential diagnosis. And what that means is we're looking at all the options. We're writing down all the possibilities, and we're taking them out one by one. We're doing tests to make sure it's not this, it's not this. We're breaking it down. You deserve to have that level of care too, and not just this assumption.
And it can also, I think, make it feel easier to say to a doctor, okay, yeah, I get it might be my weight, even though we know it probably won't be.
Mm.
What else could it be? What
Yeah.
else can we look at? What else can we explore? And that might feel easier in terms of advocacy for somebody, because it's coming at it from a point of curiosity, and it's coming at a point from saying, you're not saying to a doctor you're wrong, but you're
Yeah.
just thinking what else it could be and what your other options are, what you could explore through a public health system or potentially privately. And that might feel easier for somebody who's never advocated for themselves before,
Yeah.
but potentially something just to consider anyway. But that
One
was
of,
really, really
yeah.
great as well, Nicola. I love that.
One of my favorite phrases is when we're having these kinds of conversations is to just say to your doctor, yeah, I absolutely hear what you're saying. I am working on that piece. So the weight piece, and you don't have to tell them how you're working on it. That is just totally ignoring it. And that's great. But you're trying to build that rapport, that collaborative approach, and you're trying to get them on board. You know, you want to influence them to be helpful. So you're like, yes, I absolutely understand where you're coming from. I'm working on that. And what can we do now? Because that obviously takes a little bit of time. What can we do now? And what can we explore now? So we are getting that doctor on board. We are opening up those options to see what else we can explore. And the more that you can almost like help them want to be on your team, something else that's quite useful to say is things like, I've had problems with doctors in the past. You know, they've just looked at my weight. They've not really helped me. They've just seen my weight and they've not been able to find anything else. I would love for this to be different. I would love your help to make things different. And there's lots of different phrases and things like that that you can use to really help bring that doctor on board, to help build that rapport and to help them help you. And not all doctors will do that, right? Like they're other human beings, they're out of our control. But whatever we can use, whatever language we can use to kind of help make that conversation go smoother and better for us, then I'm on board.
I love that. And I think it's helpful sometimes for people to hear some stock phrases to write down, to go and be like, right, oh, that sounded good. I could say that. And I think that's doing it in a way. Sometimes people say to me, oh my God, I want to advocate, but it feels like antagonistic. It feels like I'm really pushing, but there are ways to say things so that you feel comfortable and so that it doesn't have to come across like that at all, to help get that doctor on board. And like you said, Nicola, you know, some of this stuff, how they react is out of our control completely. So how that conversation goes is not your fault one way or the other, but you know, it's about finding things that you feel comfortable to say and ask in a way that doesn't make you feel worried about it.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff down before you go, as I said. And some of these things just might help get that doctor on board and open up that dialogue.
Absolutely.
Hopefully some of those things there were helpful for you listening, and that you can go and use and test out. And test, you don't need to test them out, you know. Test them out.
Let us know how it goes.
Yeah, let us know how it goes, absolutely. Okay, so biggest myths about BMI and fertility that you would love to bust?
Oh, so many, but I wrote down a couple that I wanted to really share. The first one is it takes longer to get pregnant in a bigger body. I've looked at the research into this, and whilst technically it does take longer to get pregnant in a bigger body, the research shows that it's 1 month.
Oh, wow.
That's it.
Which we'd take, wouldn't we? You know, like, I mean...
I'll have it, right? Like, and there's lots of reasons why I could explain why I think that is the case. But yeah, the research shows that it is minimal. So that is one of my favorites to drop as a little mic drop. But the other ones we've already talked about, treatment is dangerous and less effective. We know that is just not true. It is just as effective if you personalize the treatment to the person and give them the right dosage of medication that they need and the right support that they need through that process. And it's just as safe if you are trained to support folks in bigger bodies.
Thank you. There's 3 really good ones, actually, aren't they, to share, I think, really helpful ones. Okay, then. So before I wrap up, finally, if somebody's listening to this today and they're feeling blamed, stuck, losing hope because of conversations around their weight, what is the one thing that you'd like them to take away from today's chat?
I think so many people feel like they are the only one that's been through this because it's so rare to hear people talk about it. So I would love folks to know that they are absolutely not alone. There are so many people navigating this in similar situations to you, and it is absolutely not okay that you're having to go through this with this level of bias. You are absolutely worthy of accessing all the care and support that you need, and we are on your side cheering you on.
Oh, Nicola, thank you so much for joining me today. I mean, as always, it's been such a brilliant an interesting conversation. I could literally chat to you about this stuff for hours.
Yes,
And
please.
Yay. And I know that so many listeners are going to take so much comfort and hope and reassurance, and also, I hope, practical advice as well that they
Yay.
can take forward and use. And like I say, I will link the previous episode with Nicola in the show notes as well. If you haven't heard that, you can go back and have a listen if this has interested you. And if today's episode has resonated and you want to learn more about Nicola or explore working with her, where is the best place for people to find you?
So I am on Instagram at Fat Positive Fertility. My website is nicolasalmon.co.uk. I have a book called Fat and Fertile, and I'm also almost finished, and it will be finished in a couple of months, a new book called IVF for Fat Folks, so all about fertility treatment for folks in bigger bodies. And in September, so if you're listening to this before September, I am launching my group program, which is my favorite thing to do. Supporting folks in a group is amazing because not only do you get all the expertise, all the support from me, but you get the support of all of these other incredible people who are navigating it with you. And it is honestly the best antidote to all of the fat phobia that you experience in this space. It is the most wonderful thing. So yeah, if you are interested in that, drop me a message. We can have a chat about it. And yeah, I hope this has been helpful. And I'm so glad that you've listened.
Yay, thanks, Nicola. And we'll put all of Nicola's links and everything in the show notes. I was very privileged to proofread Nicola's second book as well, and I've read her first book, both of which are absolutely brilliant, so you are in for a treat. And I know her group program will be just such an amazing, inclusive and supportive space, so go and check this out. And thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd really appreciate it if you could follow the podcast, leave a review, or share this episode with somebody that you think it would help. And thanks again, Nicola, for joining me. And to you all, I'll see you for the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
If you are facing more obstacles than options and want to learn more about how to overcome your fertility testing and treatment challenges in your home country so that you too can fast track to growing your family and on your terms, then check out my free training at yourivfabroad.co.uk/free masterclass. Don't forget to rate and subscribe so you don't miss an episode and so that I can reach and help more people. Thanks for listening.